Baseball is in the air. At least it is on the field somewhere. The weather's finally cooperating. But here in Pittsburgh, that means a debate. There's always a debate about the Pittsburgh Pirates one way or another. But this week, it's really been ramped up based on a couple of decisions the Pirates have made and based on a couple maybe hot button players based on how they played the last couple of years, in particular one that's actually been playing well, and the opinions revving up on that person as well. I'm Mike Osti. That's Mike Vakovican. This is Mic'd Up here on Pittsburgh Sports Live, Pittsburgh Sports Now. And of course, for this show, as we're going to talk baseball, we're going to talk Pittsburgh Pirates and some hot button issues, Pittsburgh Baseball Now. And Mike, we're both baseball guys, and sometimes it gets annoying covering the sport in Pittsburgh because everything the Pirates do ends up being a debate. Sometimes you understand, sometimes it's just a debate for no reason. This one revved up the engines and also has become really a debate nationally involving the Pirates based on the payroll and what they spend, and in comparison to national and small market versus big market. It's a conversation that'll never die because honestly, it appears that there's never going to be a salary cap in baseball, no matter what some may hope for. They didn't get through this year. It seems to be the case. The Major League Baseball Players Association, the owners, they both don't want it, so I don't see how it's going to be there. But this small market franchise in the Pirates made a decision. Oneil Cruz, a player that many are loving, they're already falling in love with, they're already getting excited about, to option him down to AAA as a developmental type decision, maybe giving him one more year down the road. Some naysayers are going to say, well, he wouldn't even be on the team at that point anyway. If he's good, they're going to trade him well before 2028 or 2029. Some say that this helps them, even if they do trade him at that point in terms of value, it helps him now, etc. What are your thoughts on that decision by the Pirates? And in any way, did that decision surprise you? Because some also thought that he could be a player that could provide excitement this year for the Pirates, even right away, off of becoming a type of bopper that they don't really have, and coming off COVID, coming off miserable seasons. You're still in the midst of a rebuild. Maybe the argument also is they need something like that to put butts in the seats, and they're pumping the brakes on that, at least right now.
There's a lot of angles to this thing. Number one, the Pirates, although it sounds good, the Pirates can't make a decision. Although we'd like them to, they can't make a decision based on putting butts in the seats. If the guy is not, now if it's borderline, okay, but there's a couple things. The Pirates, and I do everything I can not to defend them, but I'm trying to be sensible here.
Sure.
People, all they see with Oneil Cruz are the tweets that the Pirates put out down spring training of him smashing a ball with a home run. You know, they see all the good. The guy hasn't had 30 at bats in AAA yet. Mm-hmm. He raced through the rankings last year. He turned into the Pirates' number one prospect. The guy has time. He's only 23 years old. The other thing is he doesn't really have a position. You don't see too many 6'7" shortstops in baseball. I think that is a big issue. Is they have no idea where this guy is going to play. But you
do have the DH now. You have the DH now.
I was just going to say the argument against that, but I think they have those spots already filled up. If they want Oneil Cruz on this team, he's going to be a guy that's going to be in the field. And ideally with that frame, he has to play some corner position. He has to play.
Shortstop is out. You would figure based on that side, it's going to kill your body. It would be a short career nonetheless, but you would think.
A lot of teams do this. Ronald Acuna, the Braves did it. You can run down the list of teams that have done it, but because it's the Pirates and their history of being cheap, which is true, they're going to get ripped for it. I think if he's here, if he hits in April, Oneil Cruz will be here in May. This is only they get him for another year. As soon as he starts hitting down there and it's past his clock to where his extra year of free agency is extended and they get to keep him for another year,
right?
Then he'll be up here. So I really think it's being made out of a big deal once again because it's the Pirates and it deals with money. But if he shows in April that he goes down to Indianapolis, does what he's supposed to do, hits, the Pirates will find a spot for him up here at someone's expense. And if they don't have room for him up here, that's a good problem.
Well, if they don't have room, that is a good problem. I don't know if that's a problem that anyone's predicting right now in the midst still of this rebuild, obviously, yeah. And when you have the Pittsburgh Pirates and it involves money, because let's be honest, there have been plenty of times where maybe in some point 2015 still, or maybe they could have spent money, they didn't spend money. There's a whole debate on if they're spending the most money they can in interest of winning, and maybe they aren't. But the way the system works in Major League Baseball, it's just a fact that if you're a small market team, you have very little room for error. If you make a mistake, you can get screwed for years. Whereas the Red Sox, Yankees, Dodgers, etc., they make a mistake, they can go ahead and say, no big deal, we're just going to spend and fix it within 1 year. The Red Sox 1 year, they won 69 games. The year after, they got rid of the roster, built again, paid again, and they won the World Series. That's not going to happen to a small market team like the Pirates. You have a window, you got to hit it. They had their 13-15 window. They didn't fully capitalize. But that, I think, is always in people's minds when it comes to money decision for the Pirates. Even if it's a previous regime, it's not fair. But in this case, and really in most cases, with all of that said, financial decisions also do exist for the Pirates. So they're not going to rush somebody up. And if it's only 20-some days, which I think it ends up being in all reality, it's not. If it was a situation where they had to have him sent down until July to get that extra year, that would maybe make this even more controversial. But for 1 month, it does seem like a little bit of a much ado about nothing right now. And I do think part of what you said at the top of the show, and they want to do this to promote a player, but all the videos, how hungry Pirate players and Pirate fans, not only do they want a star, but baseball fans want a bopper. You want a home run hitter. I mean, chicks dig the long ball still. So when you see those videos and you see him crushing the ball and no one else doing that, it's going to make you excited. Right. It's that, and then you get this decision. It certainly does get in your craw. My question to you now, go ahead.
One other thing is, another reason this is irritating a lot of Pirate fans, and once again, it has to do with money.
And there's many reasons too, yeah.
Is the decision by the Pirates, which is completely insane, and he should be ripped as much as possible for it. For the Pirates to take Brian Reynolds to arbitration over a couple $100,000, a few $100,000, when
that's an insane asinine decision, right? That's money that's being cheap.
Yeah, right. When you have a payroll, you have a payroll in the 30 millions, which is embarrassing. Right. And you're gonna take your best player, a guy that presumably you want to sign to a long-term contract, and you're going to take him to arbitration over $300,000-$400,000. That all that stuff within the same time frame is why this is getting ripped both nationally, locally, and nationally.
That is something that I mean, there are some that try to defend everything the Pirates do, which is very, very annoying. There's some that criticize everything they do, which is also annoying. But that's something that I don't see how anyone can defend. That is insane. That is a financial decision. If I'm Brian Reynolds, and baseball players don't do this as much as other sports, imagine if somebody in the NBA, obviously the money's different, did that to a player. Immediately you'd have a tweet, I want out of here, I hate it here, get me out of here, send me somewhere else. Yeah. If I'm Brian Reynolds, I'd take that as a little bit of an insult as well. And besides Ke'Bryan Hayes, who had that 1 month in September, and we haven't really seen much since. We've seen flashes, but also he's been well hurt, and you're looking for more of a full season from him this year. Some pressure to put that together. The other guy is Brian Reynolds, who you could argue you've seen more production from to feel more comfortable from for the future than even Ke'Bryan Hayes. Adam Frazier gone. He's a little older, but he's supposed to be a cornerstone. You're supposed to tell him that, and then you make that decision. That's insane. Mike Vukovic and Mike Osti, that's the reason to get mic'd up over the Pirates there with that decision there on Brian Reynolds. Back to Oneil Cruz, though, we did start talking about how he doesn't really have a position in baseball. That's always important for stars to really have a position. Hall of Famers, you always associate them with a position, even all-stars. You certainly want your franchise guy to have somewhere to perfect, generally in the field, But now in the National League, with these new rules, you do have the DH possibility. It is universal now, not just in the AL. And we've seen guys get paid tons of money. We've now seen guys get in the Hall of Fame with Edgar Martinez and David Ortiz. That's become a legit position now. You mentioned there are other players they may have in mind, and he doesn't have a position now truly, especially because of his body frame. You have the month. I think everyone would agree now that if you go beyond the month, and if this is middle of May, this is June, and he's mashing the ball, but still not up here, that then would be a flip to that's getting a little crazy. But what is the goal with him down there? Is it to find a position? Is obviously this is a part of money decision, but is it to find a position? Does he need to find a position? If he has to come up and be the DH, because the argument could be that whatever you have now, he's still better than as a hitter. Is that okay with you? Or does he have to come up and get a position in the field because he's more than a DH for you?
No,
how can that work?
No, he's not going to be a DH on this team with Big Daniel. The guy
right
from Milwaukee, and they have a couple of right-handed hitters. He's going down
he's
there.
He's a prototypical DH. Yeah, he does feel like a prototypical DH. That guy.
Yeah. They're sending him down to get him more comfortable at finding a position. I would assume that's going to be left field or right field. It has to be, because they have a couple of guys at AAA and AA that are going to be their shortstops of the future. So there's no reason to groom him at a position that he's eventually not going to play in a year or so.
Sure.
Get him to play the position. And I think that's going to be left field or right field. He's not going to.
What if he struggles defensively? Because we also seen people freak out when someone struggles defensively. Now, obviously, if he's killing the ball, that might not be as much of an issue. But it's easier said than done to learn a new position, even a corner outfield position, which is quote unquote the easier outfield position. What if he goes out there, mashes the ball, but you're seeing 2 errors a game and he just can't handle it in the field in those positions because he's not as used to them? Is that a problem for you, or do you just live with it if he's hitting?
I think he has to be competent in the field. You're not going to be able to hide.
No, I know. Yeah.
Oneil Cruz is going to be in the field when he gets here, so he has to deal with that. And the other thing is the at bats. He's going to find a better pitching at AAA. He's going to find guys that are close. Some guys he's going to see in the big leagues. It's going to be more of a test for him than it was at single A and double A last year. Having less than 30 at bats at AAA, he's going to have to see. So I know everyone's excited and think that he's going to turn into, the next Mike Trout, but he needs to. Let's see what he does. We've seen this plenty of times with Pirate prospects.
You would think people would be aware. Yeah, we have seen this.
Yeah, let's
tons, right?
Even slow the brakes. Let's slow the brakes on him a little bit. Let's see if he can do it at Indianapolis. And then he has to come up here and do it. So, Gregory Polanco, those two remind me so much. Everyone was get Gregory Polanco up here, blah, 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 blah. And, he's over in Japan now. So I'm okay with the Pirates, what they're going to do. I'm okay with what they did, provided he gets up here at the first glimpse of him looking.
Yeah, if this lingers, then you're going to be, it's like, what are you doing?
And the other thing is, you mentioned the word window a couple of times. I think the Pirates, Ben Sherrington, they have an idea of a group of players that they believe are going to be the future. And they're all sprinkled. And by the end of this year, guys like Davis and Gonzalez and Pravier, the shorts, there's a bunch of different guys that I think are in the Altoona, Indianapolis range right now. That the ideal plan is to get these guys developed already together and then make the jump to Pittsburgh all at the same time, and then take advantage of your window. See what you have. You're going to have that 4 or 5 years or whatever to see what you can do, and then go for it. So I think that's also part of it too. Is he could be a part of that window with Henry Davis and Gonzalez and those guys that I mentioned. So I don't think it's a totally stupid plan, but we'll see.
You always got to wait and see when it comes to the Pirates, even under this Ben Cherington era. Yeah, it's a new era, but you're still waiting and seeing. And that's supposedly what he's been doing the last couple of years is you're finding out who's supposed to be part of the team whenever it does win, which is still down the road, of course. However, that does probably get in fans' craw even more to have the argument with Brian Reynolds over a few $100,000 in arbitration, because people are going to say, and they should be correct based on what we've heard and the fact that he's still on this team and he had a solid year, that he's one of those players. So if you have one of those players that you're aware of, you got to take care of those players regardless of what you do around them. And it might feel like you're already getting cheap with one of those cornerstone players in the middle of the rebuild before we get even to the window opportunity, while you're still trying to figure out who's with him as well. So there's a wait and see, but that's a reason for skepticism. I don't think the Oneil Cruz thing is a reason for skepticism. That is a forced financial decision that, yeah, it's financial, but they had to do it. There's no reason to just have him up here for a month and have it burn. But we will see how long that lingers and if he finds a position.
I think by the end of the year, we're going to find, at the end of the baseball season, we're going to find out the Pirates' plan with Brian Reynolds one way or the other. Either they're going to lock him up to a long-term deal and end all the speculation of national speculation of him getting dealt, or they're going to lock him up so that he knows he's part of the future. The fans know, everyone knows, and we have a piece there. Let's build from there. So I either think he's going to get dealt, or he's going to they're going to find a way to sign him to a considerable contract extension.
And there certainly could be people that would say, and this is also 100% fair, that he's been hot and cold a little bit. He had a real solid first season, a double machine. He had the COVID year, which was just horrendous, hitting below 200 most of that season. And then you have last year. So maybe they want to see a little bit more to say that you're the Robin to Ke'Bryan Hayes' Batman, or maybe you're Batman. They want to see maybe a little bit more. I'm sure that's frustrating for him. And I would think either way, it's still a little crazy to argue over a few $100,000 when he has been an all-star player for you type of player, and you haven't had many of those recently. But still, maybe they want to see a little bit more, and maybe they want to see a little bit more to increase his value, that if they do decide he's not going to be part of the future, it would make his value higher in a trade. Again, that a lot of this this is an important, we've said this, Mike, that you had kind of a mulligan with COVID. You had Ben Cherington kind of get his feet wet and kind of figure things out. We've seen flashes from Ke'Bryan Hayes. We're dealing with Oneil Cruz now, but it's only 30 some at bats. You're seeing flashes from, say, Mitch Keller that we're going to transition here into a second. You're trying to see more, trying to figure it out. This is an important season for the Pirates and Ben Cherington more than anybody else, because they need to maybe get more ABs and more of a full season for Ke'Bryan Hayes, figure out who's going to be a part of this team position-wise and pitching-wise, figure out what they want to do money-wise, who they want to be cheap with, who they don't, and then work from there and get to the window, which they're not yet at. But one of those players I mentioned there, Mitch Keller, we talked about him ad nauseum last year, so is everybody else, in terms of he was somebody with a lot of hype, but then it was a roller coaster ride. Then it was really a dip where it was pretty much just a bunch of bad starts and people just kind of jumping off the bandwagon. Are you in any way now willing to kind of get back on the train, a little optimistic, feeling like there's more to look at with Mitch Keller based on the spring, based on what you know to this point before the season? And even a guy like Cole Tucker, who obviously isn't near the hype of Mitch Keller or probably as important, he's been having a solid spring, and he was somebody that at one point they believed in, at one point could be a part of the team, and then he became more famous for who he's dating and wasn't hitting at all and was off the team. Anyway, these players can kind of save themselves as part of the future of the Pirates, in particular Mitch Keller, who has been that lightning rod.
Anybody that's going to make a definitive statement on Mitch Keller, honestly, is just guessing. I'd like to believe that he's turning into the top 15 prospect in baseball that he was when another guy that lit it up in AAA and then got here, and we've had him before. Yeah, we've The one reason to give me optimism with him is the thing that everyone's talking about with him this year is, for whatever reason, whatever he did in the off season, if this is sustainable, his velocity is regularly
That's
hitting.
big.
It's huge.
Yeah.
To regularly hit, he's averaging 97 on a fastball. He's multiple times in an inning hitting 99 and 100. When you start pumping that type of heat in there, that's different. And when you're throwing it near the strike zone, he hasn't allowed a run yet in spring training, as opposed to last year in spring training when he had an 11 ERA.
Right.
He's been virtually unhittable. And the good thing, the encouraging thing that I see with him is he's not relying on the fastball, or he's not relying on a strikeout so that he gets his innings, pitches piled up for his innings. He's challenging the hitters, and they're swinging, and he's having quick innings, and he's been dominant. The Pirates probably don't want to make too much big of a deal out of this, but
you're not seeing as many tweets. You are not seeing as many tweets, right?
Internally, Shelton and Sherrington, those guys have to be just, oh boy, what do we got here?
Maybe surprised too a little bit.
Yeah, he looks every bit the part of a top 10 prospect in baseball, the way he's pitching.
Right.
Question now is that gonna, when they come to back to Pittsburgh in a week or wherever they start the season, is that gonna play up here as well when you're facing the regular lineup? You're expected to go more than 2 or 3 innings,
and we've seen it not play too. We've seen that happen.
How's that going to play out?
Right.
So I'm not buying. I hate to be optimistic because he looks like and sounds as though everything the Pirates said. He's put in a ton of work this offseason. I saw his videos tweeted out about him working, putting a lot of time. There's no question about that. He seems like a solid guy. I'm not spending money yet buying stock in him.
Okay.
Yet. Yeah. I'd like to, but I've seen this before with him. He's I've had on a couple of my fantasy baseball teams.
Burn you on fantasy. It takes you a while. Yeah.
Not that has anything to do with it, but I've believed in him a couple other times, and he just can't, for whatever reason, do it in the big stage. I'm hoping I'm wrong plenty of times, and I'm hoping this is one of them, because there's nothing bigger for a team than to have an ace, a real ace, not just a guy that goes out there, is some, fake ace of your staff, a guy that goes
a default ace, right? Just because he's number one on your staff, right?
Yeah, guy that goes out there and that every 4 or 5 days that opposing team's going to have a heck of a time trying to score runs against him, and he'll be able to end your losing streaks. So the Pirates need that in a desperate way. And hopefully what we're seeing from Mitch Keller here is real.
Having an ace like that is what wins in the postseason. Those guys are called stoppers, where once you get in the playoffs, these teams are generally closer to being even here. And he's a guy that can go out there and change it by himself. He can get you 2 wins in the midst of a 7-game series. That's a big deal. You could argue the Pirates haven't had that in eons. There was an entire debate when Garrett Cole was in Pittsburgh, even during the winning seasons. Is he an ace? Is he not an ace? Is he a default ace because he's just an ace on the Pirates? Or is he truly an ace? And we've seen him have success since then, even freaking legendary type seasons. And he's had that success on teams with the Astros and Yankees, but he's not really truly been always the number one. He's been behind Verlander, etc. Whether he's an ace there is a whole nother debate. Whether they have more than one is a whole nother debate. But the Pirates having one guy like that would be a game changer just as much as anyone hitting the ball and mashing the ball out of the ballpark would be offensively, especially in that small market window to win. You don't have a decade like maybe some other big market franchises would whenever they get to that point. I think the issue with Mitch Keller, Mike, that existed before that I'm not seeing now, and in no way am I buying stock, because you got to do it. You got to do it in the show too. You got to cautionally wait for the show. If you can't do it in the show, it doesn't matter. Granted, he's flame throwing now. people were saying last year in particular, after a couple years of this and getting away from just the COVID mulligan, that he looked like a deer in headlights. He didn't look excited. He looked scared. He looked like he was mentally out of it. And we hear a lot about mental health and all of that with pro athletes. Marc-Andre Fleury in Pittsburgh had to go to a sports psychologist. That turned him around from being a solid player to having a dip in his career to eventually becoming a Hall of Fame resume. And I don't know if he saw a sports psychologist or what happened, but it does appear that Mitch Keller, at the very least, got over the mental portion of the game that seemed to be an obstacle for him before. So if he's mentally sound, maybe that's where you get back to the talent. He can start working on the talent. I don't know if that was there or not. I'm not a therapist here, but that was said by a lot of people that just you start the game, he takes the ball, and it's just like you just know, nah, it's not going to happen today. He doesn't look ready. Now he looks like he gets on that mound even in spring, and I'm gonna dominate this one, which we'll see if that happens in the show.
He looked scared. We commented on that a couple times.
He did, yeah.
He just looked unsure of himself. He looked, and as soon as a couple bad things started to happen,
it just unraveled.
Yeah, you just saw the look in his face of, he looked like, I don't know, I'm not going to call him he's a man, but he looked like a scared kid out there. He just
right.
Wasn't ready to compete, and Pirates haven't had, an ace. Just getting back to that, a badass since AJ Burnett. That was it.
I guess, yeah. The 2013. That would be, I guess.
He's a guy that went out there, and you knew that you were going to get more times than not, a lot more times than not.
And he was really confident in himself that year.
Whether or not he had his good stuff or not, he was a presence on the mound, and you were going to get 6-7 innings out of AJ Burnett. And most times, it was going to be, he's given up in the range of 3 runs a game, which for the most part keeps teams in games.
Yeah, in today's day and age, that's good.
Yeah, I'm hoping Keller is that, because he's still young enough where he's not some old prospect. He's still young enough where he could be another piece to what they're trying to build here.
Yeah. Well, a lot of questions remain unanswered here. We can't answer any of them until these regular season games actually get underway. Obviously, I do have the opinion a little bit. Spring training is always either overrated or underrated. You got to transition into the show.
Right.
Once you get to be a star, sometimes they don't even intentionally care about spring. You're trying to figure things out. You're throwing pitches you never would throw normally. You're swinging at balls you normally would take. You're making at bats quicker, etc. So you just don't know from spring. But Mitch Keller certainly provides some reason for optimism. The Brian Reynolds handling of that in arbitration maybe provides some reason for skepticism. And then we'll see maybe if it's in the middle or where people fall on the Oneil Cruz situation, which has become the debate that everyone's talking about. And yeah, you're not going to have him opening day. You're not going to have that excitement right away. I think people really wanted that. And that may impact attendance for that first month, especially if they don't win, because we're still here in the midst of the rebuild. I don't think anyone's predicting this as a playoff team right away, if you're being realistic here. So that we'll see what the attendance is this year. If they don't win, regardless of who you see, we'll see who gets there. It's always going to be the same old problem. But this really is an important year about figuring out who's going to be there. And if Brian Reynolds is not in particular, then you got to get plenty of value for him. But I'm sure if he's traded midseason here, especially if he's hitting and they figure out he's not the guy for the future for some reason, that'll be a polarizing conversation as well, like everything is.
Our next show, I'm just going to tease the viewers out there that I'm going to have we'll do a next show before baseball starts in less than a week. So I'm going to have a crazy Pirate prediction. I'm gonna have a crazy Pirate prediction that'll get people talking and making fun of me more than they already do. So just get ready for that. That's coming. I've been doing my research. I've been looking at sports books, and just get ready.
Okay. I've seen someone make a prediction that is a bit outlandish. We'll see if you jump in that territory in terms of the team and success or lack of success this year. As we close this and tease that prediction then for future shows, and also make sure to follow all of our sites here throughout the Now Network. What's your excitement level about this season? You don't get a prediction. I don't want you to tease what you're going to tease, but give me 1 to 10. How excited are you? Because obviously that wavers with Pirate fans for sure going into years. What are you watching if you know they're not going to win, or even if you think they're going to win? How cautiously optimistic can you possibly be? What's your 1 to 10 excited about this year?
I'm
for the Pirates.
I'm about at
not just baseball for the Pirates.
I'm about at a 6. I think I think there's reasons. I think there's pieces to be excited about, especially with if some of the guys hit that we've talked about. And I think this team is there's a young guy that I think is going to push for time. He had a couple home runs yesterday, and I'm hoping he stays on the opening roster. Great trade that Diego Castillo. Maybe he's a guy that will play second base. He could also possibly be the right-handed DH at times. I think there's more reasons to be excited on this team than to not be excited as far as young pieces that are trying to develop. And then I'm really excited about, of course, what they have at Altoona in Indianapolis. I will be making a couple trips up to Altoona this year to see, guys like Davis and Gonzalez and those guys. I want to see those guys while they're here. Yeah. Those are reasons to be excited. And if by the end of this year, those guys are playing in AAA, there's a real reason to be excited, because then that means that there's a chance they're here next year. And that next year is the year that I think, the baseball will really be back in Pittsburgh. I think as the season goes on, this team's going to be better. I think they're going to get better through the season, and they won't be the worst team in this division. I'll promise you that.
And we did talk about before how you got to have reasonable expectations and know what you're going in. Are you looking at individual players? Are you looking at what the team does? And I don't think anyone reasonably can say this team has to make a wild card or anything like that. But you do need improvement in wins. You can't just have 60 wins again, right? That's a big.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to sell people, smart people, on talking about individual players. Sooner or later, they have to see some results. It has to be, manifesting itself on the field. So there has to be a combination with that, but the key pieces have to keep producing. If Ke'Bryan Hayes doesn't have a good year this year, doesn't stay healthy, and doesn't have a good year, that's a reason for concern, and that puts question on him as to what he is going to be long term. We're going to see Brian Reynolds. Can he, as you talked about, can he duplicate that 2 seasons in a row? So some other guys on the field, possibly somebody like Castillo, some guys that they call up from AAA soon, Oneil, Cruz. Are these guys going to be here next year, and guys that the Pirates are going to be able to promote and really get excited about? So, but I think they are. I do. I think they have a closer. I think they have they have a couple pieces in the bullpen. It's all about pitching, so we'll find out. But I'm always excited at the beginning of baseball season, no matter what it is. We'll see how long they keep my excitement. I'll still watch, I'll still follow, but that's different than being excited. So,
or going down to the ballpark. That's different than going down to the ballpark too,
exactly,
because that's what they need people to do. Yeah, we follow, we cover it, we're going to follow. But how much are you going to get down the ballpark? Right. How much are you going to go through the check account, get down the ballpark, bring the family, drive down there, hit traffic? Yeah, that's a thing. So if they're 20 games out in the middle of June, it's a different conversation.
I'll keep my money. Yeah, I'll go spend the
right. At the bar. And there is a bar they need to be hitting wins wise, maybe in the 70s or something. You need to have some improvement for sure. This team needs to show something there. And you mentioned with Ke'Bryan Hayes, we'll leave it at that, because I think Ke'Bryan Hayes this year, what he does individually, I'll say this, Mike, it might be even more important than what the team does. If they somehow catch lightning in a bottle, but he just is awful and they're winning in spite of him, that would still give you concern about the future, because he's supposed to be the guy. We've seen 1 month and then he kept getting hurt. He's still very young, and the hype nationally might have been unfair, saying he's one of the top 15 players in baseball off of 1 month. That was insane. But he needs to show something here more than Cruz or anybody else. They got to get at least him playing 120 plus games and seeing what he does with a full season, facing pitchers multiple times in a year, etc. That'll do it for this episode of Mic'd Up. More, of course, on baseball, more, of course, on Pittsburgh Baseball Now, as well as all the other sites as we get now to opening another Major League Baseball season. And more hot button issues, I'm sure,